Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. If you have the verse on your phone or in your mind, you can chant along. Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 14th chapter. This chapter is entitled Brahma's Prayers to Lord Krishna. And Prabhupada translated up to the 13th chapter. So this is, as far as I remember, this is not his translation. Tate nukampam sushamikshmano. Sushamikshama. Good. Bunjana evatma kritam vipakam. Jana evatma kritam. Ritvagvapurvir vidadan namaste. Vidadan namaste. Jivete yo mukti pade sadaya bhak. Jivete yo mukti pade sadaya bhak. Tate nukampam sushamikshmano. Tate nukampam sushamikshmano. Bunjana evatma kritam vipakam. Bunjana evatma kritam vipakam. Ritvagvapurvir vidadan namaste. Ritvagvapurvir vidadan namaste. Jivete yo mukti pade sadhaya bhak. Jivete yo mukti pade sadhaya bhak. Tate nukampam sushamikshmano. Tate nukampam sushamikshmano. Bunjana evatma kritam vipakam. Bunjana evatma kritam vipakam. Ridvagvapurvir vidadan namaste. Ridvagvapurvir vidadan namaste. Jivete yo mukti pade sadhaya bhak. Jivete yo mukti pade sadhaya bhak. Your turn. Pam sushamikshmano. Pujana evatma kritam vipakam. Vidagvapurvir vidadan namaste. Jiveta so mukti pade sadhaya bhak. Tate nukampam sushamikshmano. Tate nukampam sushamikshmano. Bunjana evatma kritam vipakam. Bunjana evatma kritam vipakam. Vidvagvapurvir vidadan namaste. Vidagvapurvir vidadan namaste. Jiveta yo mukti pade sadhaya bhak. Jiveta yo mukti pade sadhaya bhak.
Tate nukampam sushamikshmano.
Tate nukampam sushamikshmano.
Bunjana evatma kritam vipakam.
Jana evatma kritam vipakam.
Ridvagvapurvir vidadan namaste.
Ridvagvapurvir vidadan namaste.
Jiveta yo mukti pade sadhaya bhak.
Jiveti yo mukti pade sadhaya bhak.
Tate nukampam sushamikshmano.
Tate nukampam sushamikshmano.
Bunjana evatma kritam vipakam.
Pujana evatma kritam vipakam Ritvagva purbir vidadan namaste Tayo mukti pade sadaya Tatenu kampam susamikshamano Ujjana evatma kritam vipakam Ridvagva purbir vidadhan namaste Jiveteyo mukti pade sadhaya bhak. Word meanings. Tat, therefore, te, your, anukampam, compassion, susamikshamanaha, earnestly hoping for, bunjanaha, enduring, eva, certainly, atmakritam, done by himself, vipakam, the fruitive results, rit, with his heart, vak, words, vapurbihi, and body, vidadan, offering, namaha, obeisances, te, unto you, jiveta, lives, yaha, anyone who, mukti pade, to the position of liberation, saha, he, dhaya bhak, the rightful heir. So if a verse begins with therefore, we should go to the last verse, or verses, to see what the therefore, what is the therefore relating to. So I'll read the last verse, the previous verse. This will be text 7. In time, learned philosophers or scientists might be able to count all the atoms of the earth, the particles of snow, or perhaps even the shining molecules radiating from the sun, the stars, and other luminaries. But among these learned men, who could possibly count the unlimited transcendental qualities possessed by you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who have descended onto the surface of the earth for the benefit of all living entities? So we'll go to today's verse. Therefore, well, it doesn't start with therefore. Maybe that was a false alarm. My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds, and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. Purport. Srila Sridhar Swami explains in his commentary that just as a legitimate son has to simply remain alive to gain an inheritance from his father, one who simply remains alive in Krishna consciousness, following the regulative principles of bhakti yoga, automatically becomes eligible to receive the mercy of the personality of Godhead. In other words, he will be promoted to the kingdom of God. In other words, just stay on the boat. The boat is going back to Godhead, don't jump off. And eventually you'll get there. The boat of sadhana and service. The word samikshamana indicates that a devotee earnestly awaits the mercy of the Supreme Lord, even while suffering the painful effects of previous sinful activities. Lord Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that a devotee who fully surrenders unto him is no longer liable to suffer the reactions of his previous karma. However, because in his mind a devotee may still maintain the remnants of his previous sinful mentality, the Lord removes the last vestiges of the enjoying spirit by giving his devotee punishments that may sometimes resemble sinful reactions. The purpose of the entire creation of God is to rectify the living entity's tendency to enjoy without the Lord, and therefore the particular punishment given for a sinful activity is specifically designed to curtail the mentality that produced the activity. In other words, if a certain activity causes suffering, and it causes enough suffering, and it causes enough suffering continuously, you might just stop doing it. So you'll burn the desire to do it, in theory, anyway. That's what Krishna's trying to do. Although a devotee has surrendered to the Lord's devotional service, until he is completely perfect in Krishna consciousness, he may maintain a slight inclination to enjoy the false happiness of this world. The Lord therefore creates a particular situation to eradicate this remaining enjoying spirit. This unhappiness suffered by a sincere devotee is not technically a karmic reaction. It is rather the Lord's special mercy for inducing his devotee to completely let go of the material world and return back home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. This verse and purport is appropriate because last night my YouTube feed was feeding me arguments with atheists. So I watched like 5 or 6 atheists give their arguments. And you know, one of the big arguments is like, how can I believe in God? Because they're suffering. And this verse is completely the opposite. Like, it's just interesting, you know, how a devotee thinks and how an atheist thinks. A sincere devotee earnestly desires to go back to the Lord's abode. Therefore, he willingly accepts the Lord's merciful punishment and continues offering respects and obeisances to the Lord with his heart, words, and body. So the atheist thinks, if there's a God, why is there suffering? And the devotee thinks there's suffering because I need to get out of this world, and if there wasn't suffering, I wouldn't get out. This is like so funny, isn't it? It's like the exact opposite. Thank you, Krishna. I was like headed down this dark alley, and you put some tigers in the alley, and I ran away, because if I would have continued in that alley, I would have slipped and fallen. Thank you. Which is, you know, yeah. It shows that a devotee is not envious of Krishna, and the atheist is. Yes, beautiful. Such a bona fide servant of the Lord, considering all hardship a small price to pay for gaining the personal association of the Lord, certainly becomes a legitimate son of God, as indicated here by the words Daya Bhak. Just as one cannot approach the sun without becoming fire, one cannot approach the Supreme Pure, Lord Krishna, without undergoing a rigid purificatory process, which may appear like suffering, but which is in fact a curative treatment administered by the personal hand of the Lord. Now, what's implied in this verse, and it's explained by Prabhupada, and we know that a devotee thinks everything is Krishna's mercy. So, as it's being explained here, devotee accepts everything as Krishna's mercy, but a devotee has another thought, which is, I probably deserve worse. So Prabhupada, in the teachings of Queen Kunti, he lectured on the teachings of Queen Kunti. I was actually there when they were doing that chapter, and he was lecturing on it, and he said, he once said, whatever reaction you're getting is very small. Like maybe, I think he gave the example, your throat should have been cut and you get a scratch, or like something, you know. So he said, therefore a devotee knows that, and a devotee thinks, oh, the reaction has been reduced, I deserve worse. So that nobody thinks like that. Everybody thinks, I don't deserve it, right? What did I do? I didn't do anything wrong, I don't deserve this. You know, it's like, you know, someone gets mad at you, your wife gets mad at you, you say, I don't deserve to be treated this way, right? That's just naturally how we think. I didn't do anything wrong. No, I just did like 10 billion sinful things in the last 10 minutes, but I didn't do anything wrong. So that's how we think. Ordinary people think that way. And a devotee inconceivably thinks, instead of blaming anyone or anything, he thinks, actually, Krishna's very merciful on me, he's reduced it. So, and then the other point we discussed, that's the main point of this purport is, well, I can elaborate on what's being explained. What's being explained in the purport is that we know when you surrender to Krishna, all your sinful reactions are gone. So then, therefore, it's like, why would a devotee suffer if all the sinful reactions are gone? It doesn't make sense. Where's the suffering coming from? And so, as explained in this purport, maybe there's some purification we need, and the only way we'll be purified of that is through some kind of trial, tribulation, difficulty, something that's not enjoyable, that we'd rather not go through, but it's the only way we could overcome it. So Krishna will arrange that. And I believe it's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, or one of our acharyas, explained that yes, Krishna frees us from suffering, but there may be some karmic reaction, and Krishna will decide this is good. Because this, you're, by your karma, the stars say, this will happen. So I'll let it happen because it'll purify you of some tendency that you need to let go of, and this will be the best way to do it, or maybe the only way. So then Krishna lets it happen. So then when it happens, you say, thank you, Krishna. I needed that. And sometimes I think it's obvious. I was going down the wrong alley and I had an accident, it sprained my ankle, and it's like, thank you, Krishna. I would have pretty much killed myself if I continued. Sometimes it's just obvious, you just know it. But even if you can't put two and two together, at least a devotee should think, Krishna's protecting me, or I just did something stupid and I'm getting a reaction. Because it could also be that I just did, I wasn't paying attention, put my finger in the fire. As devotees, we have so much faith in Krishna, we think that he does everything. Even when we do something stupid, we think, oh, he must have created a reaction. Well, no, you weren't paying attention. It was not his fault. So you want to make that distinction, right? Otherwise, you'll say he did everything even though I did something. Right? So that, I think that's, I've seen that misunderstanding quite common because, we're devotees, so we want to think Krishna is controlling everything. So those are the two main reasons a devotee would suffer. We just do something that causes suffering, immediate reaction, or there's Krishna's desire to purify us. And if we understand that, then we can maintain the attitude, everything is Krishna's mercy. And then this verse says, if you have that attitude, you're in the perfect position to become Krishna conscious. Like you're not going to, obviously, otherwise you're going to blame Krishna, right? Krishna, why'd you do this? I don't deserve it. Could lose faith. So everything is Krishna's mercy. Okay. Somehow or other, I don't know why this is happening, but obviously I've committed enough sinful activities in my time in this material world that a lot worse should probably happen. So how can I complain? It's like someone begs from you and you give them €5 and they start complaining. What's wrong with you? You should give me 20. It's like, well, you're just begging. Be happy you got 5. No, that's not much. You could give more. It's like that. Krishna, how can you do that? I don't deserve it. And Krishna said, yeah, you deserve a lot worse than I gave you. Don't worry. And if there's there's so many stories of devotees who, in hindsight, realized that the difficulties were critical for their becoming devotees or their advancement in Krishna consciousness. So, now, then the question comes up, what about a pure devotee like Prabhupada? Was that some karmic reaction? Did Krishna need to do that? And Prabhupada said, yeah, Krishna did need to do that. He needed to destroy my business because I was planning to make a lot of money and someday use that for preaching. And Krishna said, that's not a good idea. Let's just forget the business and, America's waiting for you. So Prabhupada acknowledged that was Krishna's arrangement. And Prabhupada, when it happened, Prabhupada immediately acknowledged it as Krishna's arrangement. It wasn't like, what's happening, like a Hollywood movie and you go into depression and what's the use, and I tried so hard. No, he immediately understood. Harishe, he chanted that. As far as I remember the stories, as soon as it happened, he heard the news, he chanted Harishe, Taddanam Shanai. Krishna loves you, he takes away your money. So that was like Prabhupada's immediate, like, this is Krishna. So that's a very good example. When these things happen, we think, oh yeah, there's a reason Krishna did this. And sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not, but at least we can think, okay, Krishna, you're on my side. Now, sometimes if a devotee doubts Krishna, it's interesting, Krishna, why would you do this to me? That means like Krishna's an adversary now. He's not on my side. Not on my side. He doesn't like me. He's like, why don't you like me? Why'd you do this in my life? And sometimes, as I said, we did it. And Krishna's like, I didn't do that. I didn't take your hand and stick it in the flame. You did that while you were cooking because you were talking to somebody. Why are you blaming me? Give me a break. Yeah. So sometimes it's like that. But a devotee who can accept this principle would never think, Krishna, why did you do that? They would always know. Even if they don't know, they would know, well, there must be some attachment or something, or Krishna wants me to learn something. That's how they would think. Like spontaneously, immediately, they would think, okay, lesson, I did something wrong. There's something Krishna's protecting me from. So they would always see it as, this is Krishna's kindness. And it's for people who don't have faith, it sounds like a total cult. God, you're suffering and going, God, you're so kind, you're so merciful. And they think, you are nuts. Like, just like, get your life together. Don't just sit there and say, your suffering is God's mercy. But for someone who's Krishna conscious, that's just how they see everything. It's Krishna's mercy. Enjoyment, suffering, right? Anything that helps you become Krishna conscious is Krishna's mercy. And if we're honest, we know that some of our attachments are very deeply rooted. And if Krishna doesn't do that once in a while, we'll never detach. I have ample experience. And when it happens, I'm like, oh yeah, it all makes sense. Thank you, Krishna. You caught me I was about to slip off the cliff. You just caught me. How'd you catch me? Threw me down, pulled me, put me down. It's like, what's going on here? You almost fell over the cliff. Oh, okay. It usually becomes obvious. So, if we say, Krishna, why are you doing this to me? It's like subconsciously we're thinking Krishna, he doesn't like me, he's against me, he's like, he picked me out of the crowd to punish me. Like, it doesn't really make sense, does it? I don't deserve it. What? Krishna, what did I ever do to you to make you angry at me? It's not like that. It's my mercy. So, the last line of this verse is interesting because it's saying, it's saying that this is the consciousness we need to become qualified to be Krishna conscious, to get Krishna's mercy. So when Krishna pulls you from falling off the cliff and throws you down, you're like, hey, you don't have to do it that way. Yeah, I did, because you would have tried to climb you would have tried to climb down that cliff again. So it's just like, now you can't climb down it because I threw you so hard you can't walk. So devotee puts two and two together. It's like, yeah, Krishna's not an adversary. But if you think Krishna's an adversary, then you could become angry at him. And there are devotees in the Hare Krishna movement who sometimes become angry at Krishna. Yes or yes? Yeah. They need to read this verse. I have a story. One devotee, very angry at Krishna. You give your life to Krishna. You're living on the edge sometimes. You don't have lots of money, and then something happens, and it's like, you crash your car and you got to get a new one, and the insurance doesn't give you much, and you don't have much, and you need the car for your business, and it's like, Krishna, why'd you do that? Right when I needed it the most. And sometimes, this is a real life story, sometimes devotee just gets angry. I'm angry at Krishna. And they'll even go up to the deities and chastise them. I know one devotee did that. At one temple, we didn't have any vehicles. And we had to take buses. And this country rains all the time, so we'd have to walk a few blocks to the bus station, rain. And this devotee, he went in the temple, and he's like, why, Krishna, why are you making the devotees take buses and this and that? And, why do I have to take a bus? And then one of his friends drove up to the temple in a BMW and said, I'm going to town, do you need a ride? Krishna's like, okay, I'll arrange it. So sometimes devotees get angry at Krishna in a nice way, and some in a totally faithless way. So this one devotee actually the car crashed and they didn't have a car and they depended on it for their business, and they dedicated a lot of time. When you dedicate a lot of time to service and you give up some personal conveniences and benefits, then it's like really hard to well, Krishna, I gave everything, and now what are you doing? And I'm like, just have faith, Visualize that car. It's coming. Just see it, feel it. Like you're in the driver's seat. You can feel it now. And she's going, how could Krishna do this? It's really angry. But I think it was 2 to 3 weeks later, a friend of hers, found out and bought her a car. A better car than the car that crashed. And she called me and I said, I told you. Because I was telling the whole time, don't worry, it's going to happen. So, yeah. But sometimes, sometimes Krishna wants to test our faith, so he'll put us in the situation and he's like, okay, what are you going to do? And he's looking at you. You're like, Krishna, how could you do this? And you're like, failed the test. So, it's good to think when there's a test that Krishna's watching, he's got a little pen and a pad, he's going to grade you on your behavior, And and then you fail and he's like, look at this poor devotee. He's like, what's wrong with them? I gave them opportunity and they just failed the test. So that's a nice way to think. Krishna's looking at you when he puts you through the test. He's just watching, what are you going to do? I had this experience. It was so obvious to me that I had been teaching at this point, this was maybe 6 years ago. I had probably taught at that point at least 30 forgiveness workshops. I had done a whole online course. And one devotee was making up stories, weird stories, really unbelievable. The only person who could believe the stories they made up would really have to hate me. And she was putting them online. And I was thinking, I'm the teacher of forgiveness, and Krishna's got his pen and pad out and go, okay, Mr. Forgiveness, what are you going to do now? It was that's all I thought, the whole time. I thought, it's just it's Krishna, you're too funny. This is he said, yeah, you're a big forgiveness teacher, all right, so what are you going to do now? That's just what I thought. I was like, okay, I'll do it. I forgive this person. No problem. And he was like, yes, good. A. It was so obvious to me. And people are like, you're going to tolerate that? You're going to get back at her? How could you making up these stupid stories? Totally ridiculous, like raping my daughter and stuff like that. Just crazy. And my wife knows, and my wife's going to expose me, and just crazy. back at them, you can't tolerate them. It's like, no, Krishna's, he knows what he wants. I know what he wants me to do. And it was like so easy to do it. When you know Krishna wants you to do it, it's easy. So it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do what I teach. And it was good. Everything worked out. Hare Krishna. Okay, that's basically what this verse is about. So we could have some questions and discussions if you like.
There's one question. You just explained about the attitude when something bad happens to us. What we should, the attitude what we should have. What is about when a devotee, for example, got cancer, and he can die? What should be the attitude? Sometimes I'm feeling like if I would get the cancer, I would think Krishna wants me maybe back home, back to Tokyo, maybe he wants me to change my body, and maybe I would completely surrender, or devotee should fight that illness. And so I'm always curious about this dead illness comes. What should we?
The answer to your question is yes. You should do both. Because that was the example Prabhupada said. Then actually this question came to me 2 days ago with a devotee who actually had cancer. And so we see Prabhupada's example was, well, I should try to live and for service. But we see another example, 2 examples. I was thinking of turning the table around, then I don't have a bar here. Yeah, thank you. We have 2 examples. Well, your first example you have is, I believe it was 1967, Prabhupada had a stroke, and then he was trying to heal, and he couldn't heal, and he went back. He thought he would get better in India. The weather was better, and he preferred Ayurveda, so he went back to India. And he got better. So that's an example he tried. And then Prabhupada hit a certain point, in his last days, it was just like, I'm not going to live. So then he stopped. He wasn't trying it. It was, it was a certain point, he just said So there was a devotee named Jayananda. Jayananda had leukemia, and he was trying to cure it. And there was a certain point where he felt like it was so much energy and money put in trying to heal, and he just didn't want to do it. He just wanted to okay, forget it. And he wrote Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, yes. Why? You're spending your last days, all your life savings, and trying to save. Now, Jayananda didn't have kids, a wife, anything. He wasn't a guru, so that's different. If you have dependents, obviously you're going to try more. It would also depend on the devotee, because I know there's some devotees that would really be, if they found out they had cancer, it'd probably be the best news ever, because they just want to die and go back to Godhead. So, but we would say generally, Prabhupada, especially for the devotee, can do valuable service. Prabhupada would generally say, no, try to cure it. But in Jayananda's case, he didn't want to try anymore, and Prabhupada said it. He kind of went along with him. So it's hard to say, if a devotee had cancer and said, I don't want to deal with it, I just want to fast till death. Maybe Prabhupada would have said, okay, we don't know. But at least his example was he tried to cure himself. Now, if it gets to a certain point where it's like, okay, if I try to cure myself, that's all I'll be doing is like focusing on the cure, nothing else. Most devotees would probably just say, okay, we'll just prepare to go. But, I have godbrothers who wouldn't do that because they have so much service and they have like plans that are going to take another 30 years. It's like, I'm not dying. Not at all. But, and maybe they do all the cancer protocol they could possibly do. They're fasting, everything that everyone else did to cure cancer, they're doing it, and it doesn't work. It's like, okay. Then at a certain point, we accept. This is Krishna's desire. I have this amazing experience with acceptance. I was put in charge of a temple when I was 20. And it was really, really difficult. The devotees there were very difficult to deal with. And but it wasn't in my country, so I had to get residence there. And I didn't think I could get residence. If I didn't get residence, I would have to go back. So I was there for a few months before I applied for residence. And then I thought, this is going to be good because they're going to refuse me. Because everyone with my particular qualification at that time could not get residence into Canada who was American. It was the Vietnam War, and all these young men would go to Canada because you wouldn't be drafted if you're in Canada. So it was like they were turning people down. And there was, I didn't have financial backing. I couldn't make a real great contribution to the country. So this was, for me, it was like, whoa, I finally get to, they're going to refuse me and I'll get to go back to the temple I came from, because this was so hard. And I just couldn't see myself staying there. I mean, I was like severe. I was in like very intense anxiety trying to run that temple. 20 years old. And I don't even like to manage. And the devotees were like heavy. Each one was like a heavy hitter. There are no lightweights in that temple. Couldn't mess with them. So it was like. So I kind of I was never comfortable with that. So when you're not comfortable with something, you always want it to be different. So you're not accepting it. Right? So I honestly thought that there's no way I'm going to get my green card or whatever it is I was getting. And then I will just call the GBC and I'll say I couldn't get it. It's like an honorable discharge. It wasn't like I said, I didn't want to say I can't do this service. I just wanted to get refused, so that's much better. It's like divorce. I'm not going to do it. If she wants to do it, okay, she can do it. I'm not going to, it's not on my record that I did it. I'm divorced, but I didn't do it. So I left Canada. Did you leave the position of temple? Yeah, because I couldn't get a green card. So that was my plan, and I got the green card. And there was a transformation, like instantly when I got it, it was like, there was no way I should have gotten it. My lawyer told me, you're not going to get it. According to me, like what the qualifications you needed to get from what I read, I didn't have. You need a certain amount of money, this, that, education. You should at least speak, French, because that's a Canadian language, and I got it. And instantaneously, I shifted because I realized, Krishna, you want me here. And my whole consciousness had just settled. It was like everything was good, They say like when you're going to die, there are different stages and denial and this and that. So my experience was it was really, really hard to do that service until I went to try to get a green card, and when they gave it, I said, Krishna, I was like, I guess you want me to do this. And it was like, okay. It was just like, okay, I accept it. And once I accepted it, I was fine. And not only that, all the devotees in the temple left, and it was filled up with new devotees who were like really nice people. So that kind of happened sort of around the same time. When I accepted, things got easier. But I remember it to this day. We're talking 52 years ago. I remember this day. It's just that wave of acceptance. And I was like, okay, I just guess I'm going to be here the rest of my life.
So you want to tell us that in our life, when it comes to situation like that, when you feel, you should accept.
If it's obviously Krishna's desire. Well, if it's obviously Krishna's desire, obviously you have no choice. Like, okay, it's like, it's 4-stage cancer, metastasized, you've got like 3 weeks to live. You could, people have come out of that. You could try it, all right, but if you try it and it doesn't work, it's like, okay, I guess. Krishna's like, okay, I don't have to stay in this world anymore. It's not such a great place, So then you shift. Like, okay, I'm going to meet Krishna in a few weeks. That's pretty cool. Instead of, oh, I'm dying, this is horrible. I have to give up everything. Yeah. Wait till AI takes over. You'll be happy you died. You don't have to deal with it. Your husband's going to marry an AI robot. He'll like her better than you. So it's going to be horrible. So, you just naturally, like when you want to adjust and accept, that then Krishna just inspires you how to readjust, Because acceptance is some kind of adjustment, isn't it? In thinking, feeling, attitudes, beliefs. Yeah. So everything gets adjusted. And it's like, and then all of a sudden it can be like, wow, this is really good. You know what I mean? I could actually be seeing, you have 2 weeks to live and you go, wow, what's happening, Prabhu? 2 weeks, I get to see Krishna. It's amazing. I can't wait. I've been waiting all my life for this, as opposed, I'll leave breath cancer, I'm leaving my body. I just bought a new house. I don't want to leave. So you, once you accept, then it's easy. Everything's easy with acceptance. Sometimes it's just hard to accept. But if you can see Krishna's hand in it, then it's of course easy to accept. He wants it, and he did it. It's like, how could you not accept? You're a devotee.
There's a saying, I think, I heard from a friend, I don't know, I think it's Chinese, that the biggest luck in the world is the one that's forced upon you.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, sometimes when I think about acceptance, there are situations where there's no choice to accept. So to even say, I have to accept, it's like, you can't really say that because you don't have any other choice. It's going to be really hot today, Prabhu. You have to accept it. Well, even if you don't accept it, it's going to be hot. It's like, you're not in charge of the weather, So, I mean, we understand, it's hot, it's hard to accept like that. But there's another angle of vision. It's like, well, how could you accept it or not? It's just happening. It's not up to you. So a lot of things in life happen, they're out of our control. And the idea of acceptance is just, like, where's the question of not accepting? It's just happening. It's hard to accept. We understand what that means, but if you look at it another way, there's nothing to accept. You can't not accept it. It's just happening. And that's how you accept, by accepting that there's nothing to accept. It just is. It's like, I can't accept that red light. Or what do you want to do? Throw a rock at it? It's red. What's there to accept? Right? It's unacceptable. Red light. I'm late. It's unacceptable. Is there anything to accept? It's just stop your car. There's nothing else. So that's a good way also to look at it, because then you don't have to accept it anymore, because there's nothing to accept. That's how it is. I don't know if I can accept this concrete floor here. It's got cracks in it. You would think Mahatma's really crazy. He's not accepting my concrete floor because it's got cracks. He doesn't accept cracks. It's like, what's up with him? Like, what's to accept? It just is. Now, if you make a choice and you behave in a bad way, we can say that behavior is unacceptable. At the same time, it already happened, so it's too late to not accept it. It's like, you can't not accept it now. It happened. So, sometimes we get hurt by the behavior of someone, or it's just like, that's unacceptable behavior, and the rest of your life you're like, it's unacceptable. Every day you think about the unacceptable. Your friends are like, just let it go. Can't let it go. How could you let that go? It's like, how can you let it go? It's already gone. It happened 10 years ago. You can't accept it. It already happened. It's over. What's to accept? Not accept. It just happened. You can't not accept it. It happened. So if you reframe it that way, it can sometimes make it easier. Accept, not accept. How can you accept, not accept? It's not in your control. It already happened. It's over. You're going to not accept it, and it's erased from the Akashic record. It didn't happen. And so we understand, it's just how I see it. I can erase that part, but I can't erase what happened. Anyway, it's a way of thinking. If you when you're in that situation, you could use that. Maybe it'll work for you. Yes?
So it's mean in our life, because it is said everything is moving by the Krishna mercy, right? But actually it is like that, everything is moving by the God will.
Yeah.
So our will is really like, if we want to go back to Him. But I will say for myself, when I see our life is really short, to put all this in the hand and to make sure that we'll be able to go back to God, actually it's look like it's also it depends also on the Krishna on the end, what He will do with us, about our real insight.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's always, there's mercy. There's definitely the mercy is making up for our lack, but our intention is most important. Yeah, because Krishna will play with your intention. He'll work with your intention. If there's no intention, there's nothing to work with. Let's say you're like a therapist, and you're doing therapy with someone, and there's just like they're in denial of everything. You got nothing. You don't have a person to work with. They're like, that happens in counseling and therapy. It happens. Like the counselor, the therapist knows exactly the problem, but the person doesn't want to deal with it. So it's like it's the same. It's the same with us. If we don't allow Krishna to work with us, then He can tell us whatever. It's not going to do anything, or He can just stop telling us, because why tell this person? I've already told them, they don't follow. So, they'll just have to go through whatever they have to go through. So I was thinking of that this morning, like sometimes we lose inspiration and we're not so engaged. But we don't have that much time to lose inspiration and not be engaged, because the clock is ticking, and so like, how could I just, I don't feel like it, I'll do it tomorrow. Like, you don't have time to think like that. Since we need all the time we can get to be Krishna conscious. I want to stay healthy, I want to live a long time. I need to chant more rounds, I need to read more, I need to do more service, because I need more purification. So to sit back and take it easy and avoid service and sadhana as much as I could do, it doesn't make sense. It's like you're in a race and you're sitting down.
Actually, it's Krishna around us all the time. I just realized how you are speaking, that our relationship with the God actually is starting in the round. It's so deep, actually.
Yeah. And the aversion is very deep also.
Yeah.
We just did a japa workshop in Amsterdam. And sometimes I would chant Hare Krishna, Krishna. I would Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. I would skip one Krishna. I'm like, because it's faster that way. Because your rounds done faster. Only say one Krishna instead of two. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Much faster. And I'm thinking, okay. I'm not thinking okay, I just need to concentrate more. I'm thinking, no, that's not the problem. It's a problem. I have to be aware, of course. Fortunately, I was aware. I was like, oh, you're not chanting. Because I'm thinking of something else. Then I was thinking, no, let's take this to the level of this is impersonal. Krishna's in His name, and I was just like, nah. Krishna, just go over there. Hare Krishna. I got other things to think about right now. Just, I'll get back to you later. So when we're chanting and we're, thinking about everything other than the holy name, then I was thinking, that's really an impersonal way to deal with Krishna. And it's like, why would I be impersonal? Why would I be like that? Well, this is the person that you turned your back to. This is the person you want to be. This is the person you're jealous of and envious of. It makes sense. And Prabhupada said, this is the person you hate because he has everything you want. You ever hate someone because they have everything you want? Like, you don't even know them. They just live in that beautiful penthouse up there and they have a Rolls Royce and you hate them because you don't even have a car and you're living in a little small studio. So Krishna's got everything we want and we don't like that because he's competition. So, that explains why. Why do I have trouble like hearing the holy name and being present? It's just like, this is competition. I mean, let's say you have a bad relationship with someone, and I say, okay, here's your therapy. I want you to say their name all day. You're like, I want to kill that person. I can't say their name. It would be hard, right? But when you love that person, can you say their name all day? Yeah, of course. Right? Susan. Oh, Susan. Susan. I just can't. There's a song like that. Maria, right? Maria. The sound of your name. From that musical, whatever it was. There's a musical. West Side Story or something. Maria, the sound of your name. So, do you like the name Krishna? No! Stop that chanting! I am God. Father, you're not God. Krishna's God. Ah, where's your Krishna? It's like, and we look at the story of Hiranyakashipu and go, that's Hiranyakashipu. But it's nice to say, like, I've got some Hiranyakashipu Shakti also, like I'm not entirely not like him. There are aspects of, sometimes I'm chanting, it's just, why do I have to chant? This is boring. So Hiranyakashipu is not bored with Krishna's name, he's angry, but it's in that, it's going in that direction. So it's interesting to think, like, he's a person, he's in his name, and unless I am fully present and worshiping and honoring that name, there's some impersonal, not impersonalism as an aspect of God's impersonal feature, but impersonal relationship. Like I'm just ignoring him, right? I chant 16 rounds a day, the only problem is I ignore Krishna the whole time. Just a minor detail I need to work out, Get back to the drawing board. It's maybe having some negative effects on my spiritual life. It's possible. Right? What do you think? Yeah, maybe. Let me think about it, yeah.
When will we stop all this? Because
Well, as Prabhupada said, you could stop it in an instant. And I think that's the best answer. But what will create that instance? Thinking about this and just trying to be a better devotee, because if you're trying to be a better devotee, you'll come to all these conclusions all the time, because Krishna will help you. That's when we lose that desire to advance, then Krishna doesn't need to help you. Then it's like he needs to help. He'll help you with whatever you want. So if being advanced is not really what you're that interested in, if there are other things, then he'll inspire you for other things. It's kind of dangerous. Because, you would think God would not inspire you for something that's antagonistic to him, but he will, if that's what you want, unfortunately. That's why they say, be careful what you pray for. I always tell devotees that I think one of the most beautiful things about Krishna consciousness is that if you want Krishna, he'll always help you. And Prabhupada said, if you want to love Krishna, there's nothing that can stop you. Like, Krishna's not, you want to love me? Well, let's see about that. And then he just puts some huge obstacle in front of you. You win the lottery, your old girlfriend or boyfriend shows up, get in a big fight with your husband. You're like depressed, you used to drink alcohol. It's like he can put anything in front of you if you're not careful. But if you want him, he'll help you. So, then we say, okay, that's good. Now how do I get the desire? Just do what you're doing, but do it better. And do more of it. Oh, my desires are weak, Prabhu. Well, when was the last time you read Prabhupada books? About 8 years ago, I think. Well, that might explain something. When was the last time when you were chanting your rounds and you heard the Maha Mantra? Heard it. We're supposed to hear it? I didn't know that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we need to have a desire that's strong enough for Krishna to respond. But we need to do things also that will strengthen the desire. And if we don't do that, then... And I think having Krishna Katha in your mind going, thinking about it, analyzing, talking, discussing, reading, that always creates a stronger desire, because you always come to the same conclusion. Out there is, I know what it's like, I've been there, done that, it hasn't changed, it's gotten worse. But Maya will say, hey, you never did this before, you should try that. Or you've done this before, but you haven't done it with this person, it'll be different. So, but when our sadhana is good, we'll just say, no, I've done it, it's just a different color, it's the same thing. But if we're not strong, then, oh, it's a different color, let's try it. So, I think a good paradigm is live your life in a way that your desire will always be strong. In the 9th chapter of the Gita, I think it's the Mahatmanastumam Partha verse. Mahatmanastumam Partha. You know that verse? Daivim prakritim ashrita. The Mahatmas take shelter of the divine energy. So I believe it's in that purport, and Prabhupada says, to advance in Krishna consciousness, you need realization. To get realization, you need to be in a certain environment. Your spiritual practice has to be on a certain level, otherwise you don't get any realization. Only realization you get is you're not Krishna conscious. And aside from that, no Krishna conscious. Have any realizations today, Prabhu? Yeah, I had a big one. What is it? I'm not Krishna conscious. It's my big realization for the day. So, Hare Krishna. So in that purport, Prabhupada says, a devotee knows that to advance he needs realization, because realization is like clarity, right? And to have realization, he has to have a certain level of spiritual practice. And he said, therefore, he'll not put himself in a situation where he won't have realization. Isn't that interesting? Like he'll not allow himself to live a lifestyle where he's not getting realization, which is just basically energy, spiritual energy. And if he is, he'll like, uh-oh, something's wrong, I'm not inspired, there's no realization, let's go back, what am I not doing? You ever have a realization and 3 days later you can't even remember what it was? And it was like, this was life-changing, everything's different, and you tell your friend, you say, what is a realization? Oh, it's this. I don't have time, tell me later, and they call you next week and you go, what was it? You go, I can't remember. I forgot my life-changing realization. So what happened is, like, your life, something shifted in your life, and what you were thinking and doing at that time, they gave you the realization you're not thinking and doing now, and you can't even remember it. So, I was listening to a lecture this morning when I got up, and Prabhupada said, Sattva Gun, we have to be in Sattva Gun. Everything happens in Sattva Gun. So in Sattva Gun you get all these realizations, and then you digress into Rajas and Tamas, and you don't get, they just go away. And so now you don't have them, and those were the things that were giving you strength, and without those, what are you going to do? Because if you have Tamas and Rajas, then you'll start resonating with Tamas and Rajas, and it'll look attractive. So, my thinking has always been, why would I want to put myself in a situation like that? Because I want to go this way. Why would I put 80 pounds on my back, It's like, just drop it. All this contamination. I'll just make it easy on myself and just drop it. So, and then now, because you have that desire, Krishna's like, okay, let's work together. We can do this. And he gives you all the realization you need. The Dhammi Buddhi Yogam Tam. And so, then it's guaranteed you'll be Krishna conscious if that's what you want. It'll just happen. So therefore I always think, to maintain that desire is like essential. Because, you can't do it on your own, you need Krishna's help. And if you don't have the desire strong enough, he's like, okay, whatever you want, I'll give it to you. And he'll give you something other than himself. Duryodhana took the army, Arjuna took Krishna. So sometimes they're like that. Krishna comes to him and goes, okay, Nandarani, You can have all my opulence, all my money, all my jewelry, all my resources, all my people, all my palaces, or you can have me. Which one do you want? And I think, well, that's an easy question, yeah, but when confronted with it in reality, you're like, I could have everything I always wanted. Yeah. What do you want? You want to star in the next Hollywood blockbuster? It's yours. Just ask for it. I'll give it to you. Like, oh, really? Or you can have me. So that's basically the choice, right? Is Krishna, in your heart and mind, is Krishna better than anything he could give you? He must be, because if he's not, how are we going to get his help to go back to Godhead when we don't even want it? We just want to get things from him.
I just had a life-changing realization.
Okay.
I was thinking it's just the same with the holy name. I have a big problem with worrying about things while I'm chanting. And I can't hear because I'm worrying all the time. And now I'm thinking, that's actually choosing Krishna's army instead of choosing Krishna.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking for some outside resources to put everything.
Exactly. It's like you want to figure it out yourself or let him take care of it. That shouldn't be a difficult choice. But we have to discuss these things and think about them. Otherwise they just creep up. Yes?
I must say this, our movement, disciple Prabhupada, we are getting old. We feel...
You noticed we're getting old. I noticed
I'm
also.
sorry to say this, but when I speak with devotees, we always feel a little bit worried. What will happen in the future?
Yeah.
And then actually what you said now, we should be always connected to Krishna.
Yeah. Well, like Prabhupada said, everything is in his books. So the question of what will happen, when that was asked to Prabhupada, it was always like, well, what are you going to do? It was always, he said, it depends on what you do. It's like, can the world become Krishna conscious? Well, why are you asking me? You're the ones that have to do it. Are you going to do it or not? So it's like, it really should be taken that way. Like I last year in Vrindavan, I told the devotees, I said, your generation probably has the most difficult position because you've got the conservative Prabhupada disciples who don't want to change anything because they don't want to go down in history as screwing up ISKCON. And then you inherit all the things they didn't want to screw up that are screwed up because they didn't change them. And now it's on your shoulder. Are we going to change this or not? Because this and that isn't working. We have to change it, but it doesn't seem like we're supposed to. So they didn't make all the decisions. So you have to do it, and you could really screw it up. Because, the next generation is more handicapped because they weren't with Prabhupada. They heard the stories and this and that. But it's a little different when you're there and you live through it. But yeah, it depends on you. But it doesn't... obviously we don't want to say there's no value to the Prabhupada disciples being alive, but if you actually think what they've already given so much. It's like they've given enough. If they all died today, it's not like you're going to be missing anything. And they could give more in terms of infrastructure, but they may not even be the best ones anymore to do it. The younger devotees may be more capable. Like we don't have, what experience do we have? We were all like, philosophy majors, psychology majors, art majors, music majors, theater, drama. That's like all the devotees who came. It's all coming from that. Not like, one out of, 1,000 maybe MBA. So it's not like our generation is like, these high end, like just come in and like, 2 months later everything's, like just so well structured, all the problems are solved, money's flowing in, everybody's cooperating. Younger devotees have There's more qualification on that level amongst the younger devotees. So of course, yeah, the spiritual guidance is there, but Prabhupada left us. I was 7 years in the movement, and I think Prabhupada was feeling like, look, you have my books, and you have the Maha Mantra, so it's like, you can do it. Yeah, we messed up, of course. You can do it, but we crashed the car a bit. But ultimately, we had everything we needed. We just had to learn by mistakes. So it's all there. I kind of have this intuition that Prabhupada felt like, there'll just be devotees who will take up Krishna consciousness, who will just be very pure. And it'll keep going. Maybe not because 10,000 are pure, but maybe 100 are really pure, and they'll influence millions of people. It could be that way also. And the others will benefit from that. But it's not, Prabhupada never said that. He always said, all my disciples become gurus, everybody. That was his, so that was his desire. So the answer to the question is, when we all become gurus, then everything is good. But it's going to be, the thing is that we're like every year after Prabhupada left was a year of something we never went through before. And it's just like, it's more like that now. And so as the future unfolds, it's like more different, because society is way different from when it was, what it was like when Prabhupada was here, and the whole, the way ISKCON is structured is different, because just you're not getting so many people to live in the temples. Society is different. What's working to preach is different. So it's, these are, when Prabhupada was here, it was kind of the same every year. We just did more of the same thing. But now it's like the same thing doesn't always work. So you always have to be on the edge. What do we do now? And when I was a devotee, the only people that joined were hippies. It was like totally homogenous. There was like one mentality. Like we understood. We didn't even preach to anybody else. Very rarely. Maybe some devotees preached science, academia, but most of us, we just looked for young people, burned out young people. So it's obviously so much different now. The kinds of people joining now never joined then. Ever. It wouldn't even dream that those people would become devotees.
Yesterday was one lady, she will come today on the program. She's 74, and I just met her. I gave her Bhagavad Gita. We have something in Shastra now. And I called her here. She came. We was talking. She wanted to know everything about Krishna and his universe and creation. All over the sun, and she's 71. She said, I never thinking about that.
Mm-hmm.
Now I wanted to know a little bit more about it. And she will come, and she said, I want to buy japa and start chanting. So she's 71.
Yeah, so that's completely different. I just heard a story from who told this story? Oh yeah, it was Malati. I think Malati told the story. I think Malati is like maybe 3 or 4 years older than I am, something like that. So this must have happened when she was like 22. So she was in a temple, I think it was San Francisco, and a 35-year-old devotee woman joined. It was the oldest woman that ever joined ISKCON. And Malati at whatever, she was 24, said, who's going to take care of the old lady? It was like, 35. Do you have the right address? You don't want to come here. You must have the wrong address, because average age was probably 21, 20, 22, 19. So that dynamic is totally different. I've done programs where average age was 50. I never, in my experience as a young devotee, never saw a 50-year-old in the temple. And if they were, we went and talked to them, because we would think, like, what's the point of talking to them? They're not going to be devotees. In that age group, it's extremely rare. Maybe one every 20 temples or something like that. So the next generation, society's changing so fast. So, you're gonna have to be applying all this stuff to scenarios that we didn't have. And you just don't know. And what are you going to do? What are you going to do if you can't make a woman anymore because it says women are less intelligent and the society, it's like you're going to have to figure out how you're going to deal with that. We have to deal a little bit, but it's not a huge problem now. But what if it becomes a huge problem? What if the government finds in our books some racist statement and they're saying we're going to take away all, we find out new government this and that, and it's like and they're looking at religions and this and that. We're like, oh my God, if they read our books, they're going to find this. How are you going to deal with it? What are you going to do? Print new books, take it out. You're going to have to make all these decisions that we didn't have to make. So it's going to be more challenging, I think, for you. And we're making these decisions with thousands and thousands of Prabhupada disciples who are all disciples of the same guru. And you're going to be making decisions we never had to make with disciples of different gurus, and the different gurus are very different. And you may have to disagree with your own guru because he says, I want women to be guru, and you're like, that's not a good idea. So it's a totally different dynamic, challenging, isn't it? So I think you're going to inherit a greater problem. And you're going to inherit every problem that Prabhupada disciples didn't solve. So if they couldn't solve it, like, sorry guys, we couldn't solve this one, it's all yours. And you're like, you want us to solve it and you couldn't do it? And some devotees think maybe it'll be easier for you. Maybe as Prabhupada disciples were too set in our ways. And one side set in their way, the other side set in their way, and it's just, they can't change. Could be, but it's going to be a challenge. And the biggest challenge is, how are we going to work together when we disagree? That is, that's probably the biggest. Because, if we divide and divide and divide and divide, pretty soon, the pie is pretty small. And we lose the Shakti. So that's really the biggest challenge. I see. Or we could say, yeah, it's the biggest challenge and the most difficult. It seems to be the most difficult.
There are 3 Facebook questions.
Okay. Hello, Facebook. I can't see your face. I can see the back of my phone.
Okay, first, Ankush Kumar Singhal. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Sometimes Krishna takes away everything and you think it's his mercy, but devotee thinks otherwise. How to know?
How to know it's his mercy? If you have to, first, like I said before, first thing you want to make sure is it's like you didn't do something stupid. So it's like, I was just doing the same thing I do every day, but today this happened. So it's like, there's no correlation. It's like, okay, you try to resolve that. Did I cause this problem? If the answer is no, well, if the answer is yes, then that's the answer to your question. If the answer is no, then you think, why did it happen? What is Krishna trying to tell me? What do I need to know? What am I supposed to learn? Or like, what attachment is Krishna trying to break, or something like that? If you think about it, use your intelligence, you'll probably figure it out. Anyway, that's my answer for now. If that doesn't work, you can ask more.
Next one, Gaurangi. She says, Hare Krishna Gurudev, how can we make an acceptance progress faster and also heal faster? Or does it take its own time and we shouldn't force it too much because we can bounce back to the old patterns?
Yeah. Well, I like to say, as Prabhupada said, you can do it in a moment, but it could also take you lifetimes. So it depends on what you have to accept and how difficult it is, but it depends on your conditioning also. But in either case, the foundation is, are you ready? Are you willing to accept? Are you willing to be in that? Because that's really, at least in my experience in trying to help devotees, sometimes they're just not willing. It's like, it doesn't, like, how can I accept this? It's not right. This is unjust. and they can't, or if I accept it, that would be bad or wrong, or would have a negative consequence. So sometimes you have to accept it internally and not externally, because it would have a negative consequence maybe to accept negative externally. So you deal with it externally, but internally it's like, okay, it's out of my control. So in my own life, if I need to do something, I try to internally convince myself, philosophically or however, to be able to do it. So I come and I go, okay, this makes sense. It's much easier. Like you've kind of analyzed it. And so it's like stupid not to. So I think that helps. Like we often say, say it's really hard, like let's say you're saying we'll say self-acceptance. Or accepting another person is really hard. Okay, isn't it harder not to? And you think about it, you go, yeah, it actually is. When you think about it, right? Chaitanya Das, I can't accept you. You're like this, I'm like that. Marco, I can't accept you like this. You put too much of this in the subject. I can't accept a person who doesn't know how to cook. That's more painful than just, whatever. That's how he cooks, whatever. That's how she is, whatever. My wife and I did a little hour-and-a-half talk on marriage maybe 10 days ago. And I wanted her to do most of the speaking. She said, you speak first. And then she's, a marriage counselor, so it's like, kind of like giving a lecture in front of your guru. It's, it's like, what are you going to say? You'll start talking and they'll just interrupt you, She said, no, you speak and then I'll get going. So I knew what she was going to talk about, and so I didn't talk about that directly, but I talked about a very powerful experience I had in my own marriage with acceptance. Because one of the stark realities of marriage that hits you early on is like, this person I didn't realize the person is like this. I realized he's like that, but there's some new sides of her that I didn't see because I wasn't living with them, or they were putting on a good show because, I'm wealthy and they wanted to marry me, aside from being beautiful as well. Whatever, And those things I can't accept are not necessarily bad, because those things I can't accept about my wife, Marco may think, oh, those are the things I like most about her, because we're different. You like that she does that? Oh, that's wonderful, I love it. So obviously, because we're individuals, we have certain likes and dislikes, and so you may just be, in certain ways, a way I don't like, which is not a judgment as being good and bad, it's just my taste. So that you can't avoid that, it's inevitable. And hello everyone, do you like everything about yourself? No. Do you ever do something stupid? Yeah, you ever do something and say, I wish I hadn't done that, never want to do that again, hate myself when I do it? Yes. So once you accept these realities, it's like, this is just how it is. So what benefit is there to not accept it? If you like to suffer, okay, don't accept it, just suffer. So if you analyze this and you look at ramifications, you realize, okay, it's hard to accept, but it's harder not to. It's always like that. I don't want to do this, it's really difficult. Yeah. So what's the result of not doing it? Oh, I feel miserable, I don't like myself. Okay, it's easy not to do it, and then you have to spend the rest of the day hating yourself. Like, I think, take 10 minutes and do it and spend the rest of the day liking yourself. Isn't that better? So that's how you have to, reason with yourself. So not accepting your partner is like hell. You want to live with, and just say, that's how they are, and just laugh, How could she do that? And you just, ha 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 ha. She always does it. And it's over. It's like, I'm not God, I can't, everything's not going to be exactly the way I want it.
To talk with ourselves. Actually with the brain.
Yeah.
The mind is pushing all the time information.
Yeah. I mean, our conditioned nature is like, it's not the way we want to be. So you have to intervene with the mind and go, that doesn't make sense. But that's just the habit, So if you're going to do the habit, you want to intervene. Intervention mind, this is stupid, okay, do this and you get this result, do that. Better do this, that's a better result, okay. And then you just, And so, to be Krishna conscious, you can't just go, whatever Krishna wants. I guess he didn't want me to chant my rounds today because I couldn't get out of bed. So it must be his desire. And everything is good. Because that's our conditioning will do that. And so you can't just go with your conditioning. You got to use your mind and intelligence. Go, wait a minute, that's not right. I did vow to chant 16, and this is the Yuga Dharma, and I really need to do that early in the morning. And you're just like, then you get out of bed and do it. It's just, this is the way we're designed. That's why Krishna gave you intelligence. Hey, good thing I have it. I might as well use it. That's a good idea. Use your intelligence. You got it. It's a gift. It's like you got your Mercedes in the garage. You ever drive? It's a nice car. I don't drive it. I don't want to get it dirty. It's like, no, use your intelligence. He gave it to you. It's what you need. Because Maya's like, if you don't use your intelligence, Maya's like, oh, he doesn't use his intelligence. He's a sitting duck. I got him. But as soon as you use your intelligence, you can't do anything, isn't it? This is how I look at it. Maya's got a battle plan, and Prabhupada's books are, this is Maya's battle plan. It's all, it's all, you can read the whole plan. It's like how she's going to attack you. You know everything she's going to do now. But if you don't read the books, you don't know how she's going to attack, and you're not ready for it. And so she gets you. She hits you from the back. I didn't know you were coming from the back. Well, if you would have read my Prabhupada's books, you would have known. She comes from all sides. At any time of day. In all directions, yeah.
Sometimes I feel like the most dangerous form of Maya is Krishna's shaped Maya. Like, sometimes we think we are doing something very conscious. And it's actually...
the biggest form of Maya is thinking that what I'm doing is Krishna consciousness. And it's not, yeah. For example, I'm watching the movie Avatar. It's Avatar Prabhu. It's rated KC. Like that. Or no, that's not a good example.
Even the example of gurus falling in ISKCON, we could take some parts of that. They were probably thinking that this is something.
Yeah. Well, a good example would that be sometimes we're motivated by pride and we think, I'm very inspired, but it's all coming from pride. So what it means is that our level of intention, our level of self-honesty, our level of sincerity, and you could add a few more ingredients, introspection, it's got to be deep enough so that when it happens, it's like, oh, you just hit, what's happening, you don't take another step. So I can't go with that. I can't go with this. This is wrong. But if our desire for honor or whatever else is we're getting from doing devotional service is so strong, the false ego won't even let you interrupt it, because that would rain on your parade. So you just go with it, and you're inspired. Pride is very inspiring, isn't it? Like if you're in the center, it's like, whoa.
I like it.
You can get really inspired. People walking around you, polishing your toenails, kissing your feet. It's like, yeah. So you think, yeah, I'm really inspired in Krishna consciousness, yeah. But it's all inspired by our own pride. So if we have enough humility, introspection, self-honesty, then we'll see it and we'll just stop it. We'll go, no, I'm not going there. But if we don't, then in the name, like you say, in the name of bhakti, we'll hang ourselves.
And also, sometimes we tend to bully other people and other devotees by our philosophy and by...
Weaponizing Shastra,
yes.
shaming.
Yes.
Pride, yeah. It's all material conditioning, just entering into bhakti. That's a problem. And then we don't see it. Like if you don't understand your own conditioning, then how are you going to see it? But if you understand your conditioning, then when it enters bhakti, you go, oh, that's not bhakti, that's my conditioning, because I know what my conditioning is. Now I can just like, whoa, that's not good. Stop. But so I was having I don't know why I was thinking like this. Maybe some classes I was giving, but one day we were talking about spiritual abuse. No, I was talking with some devotees about leadership. We have actually a little leadership group. And we're talking about the qualities of a leader, and it was like, yes, if a leader, you can't be a leader if you're not introspective, because you have to be able to see yourself. Because someone's going to come and say, you know what you're doing, that's not good. What do you mean? Who you tell me? How long have you been a devotee? But the fact is, what the person's doing is not good, but they can't acknowledge it. So therefore I said, if a leader's not introspective, then nobody can work with him, because nobody can tell him anything, right? But if you don't know that you're not introspective, then how can you be introspective? So that's the problem, right? So you have to be self-aware. If you're not self-aware, how are you going to know when you're walking the wrong way? You'll know when you crash, but it could be too late, right?
There are 2 more questions here.
Okay, can you wait for 2 more questions?
We can wait.
Get your money's worth, yeah.
Krishna Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhu, I feel it is hard to become a guru because of politics involved. How to balance between bhakti and management?
Don't manage, just preach. Devotees manage, and they, human nature, politics and all that, but they do it out of, they do it because they want to serve Prabhupada. So they take on that austerity. And if they're going to do it well, they do not let that austerity divert them from the most important things, which is their purifying their hearts and maintaining humility and so on. So, it's like, I think that what you're saying is that environment of management is so political that you can get contaminated. That's true, but especially when you're in an environment, you have to deal with so many things and praise, and people like love you and other people hate you and criticize you because you said the same thing you've said your whole life, but now you're a guru and they don't like it because you said it as a guru. It's like, okay. You'll always try to be humble and maintain, not allow those things to upset you or divert you. But it is, whether it's political, managerial, or whatever. Maya doesn't just like come in those arenas. She can come in like the morning at 5 o'clock when you're chanting and invade you there. So you just, it's always like take care of yourself so you can deal with whatever you have to deal with in a Krishna conscious way. That's fundamentally important.
Shreya.
Shreya.
Yes, Shreya Oja. Hare Krishna Prabhu, can you forgive someone internally but still have boundaries?
Yes.
Ties because
Yes.
they're not good for a spiritual life.
Yes.
You can't trust them.
Especially if they try to kill you, you're probably going to want boundaries once you forgive them. I think that would be a good idea. And they were your accountant for your company and they stole $350,000 from you, probably get a new accountant. And you might want to consider firing them, maybe. Good idea. Okay. I'm not going to try to hurt you, harm you. I don't bad thoughts. I'm not emotionally connected to you out of hatred, revenge, or whatever. Just that you're not my accountant anymore, and you probably understand why. And I'll see you in court. because I want my 350,000 back. That's fine. As long, but if you want to be Brahminical, when you do that, you should not be motivated by anything tamasic. Okay, you can hate, you can be angry, but just make it sattvic hatred, sattvic anger, But don't be motivated by tamasic. Because some people say, well, what's wrong with anger? You're always saying don't get angry. There's nothing wrong with anger, it's just energy. It's just what you do with it. So if it's sattvic, yeah. Save the world, I'm angry. Politicians, capitalism, it's ruining the world. And so many isms are ruining the world, I'm angry. Yeah, that's energy. Motivates me to do some good. But tamasic anger, not good. So yeah, do what you have to do. But don't carry tamasic qualities within you. Those should not be your motivating factors. Self-preservation is an important motivation. Taking care of yourself. That's a good motivation. That's it? We're finished. Do you know how to end it and stream it? Okay? Will we see everyone tomorrow? Same time?
Same time tomorrow.
Same time, same station. Okay. Hare Krishna.